Good afternoon. My name is Chris Wilson. I'm the Group Program Manager for the IE Web Platform and Security. I'm here to talk with you about what's new in IE 7. So first of all, I want to say I'm really excited to be here to talk about IE. I've actually developed on web browsers for over 10 years now, so obviously I have a real personal passion for it. Real personal passion for Internet Explorer as well. Before I get into this, I wanted to say that IE really means many different things to many different people. So I'm going to try to frame the discussion a little bit about what perspectives I'm going to take on the features that we've done, the work that we've done, and then do that in about 50 minutes or so, and then hopefully have tons of time for questions at the end. So please hold your questions to the end. We'll have plenty of time. We're not going to get kicked out of here or anything. So we'll address them all then. So I wanted to group the perspectives on Internet Explorer by group, by set of people. And the first group, obviously, is end users. My prototypical end user is always my mom. She goes on the web to browse photos of her super cute new granddaughter. To her, IE is the big blue E on the desktop, and that's really about all she thinks of it. The second group, though, is web designers, the people who produce and provide content, design content for the web. Third group is application developers, so people building line of business apps, end user applications, using web technologies that run inside the browser. The fourth one is commercial developers of IE add-ons, so people providing toolbars, BHOs, ActiveX controls, anything that sort of extends the browser, extends the platform. And finally, infrastructure. This is kind of the catch-all for people who provide the systems and environments that network applications run in. So all of these are really valid perspectives to think about IE from. The reason why I've gotten these out of the way up front is I have these tabs on the right side of all of the slides, and this tells you sort of which slides apply to which group of people. So if you're really interested in the application developer perspective, look for the A. The other reason, of course, is this way you all get the secret decoder keyring right up front. Anybody who comes in late, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Don't tell them. Make it be a mystery. They'll have to watch the video later. So if you feel like I'm not actually getting to your perspective, please also bear with me. I will get to you. Long presentation, so we'll get to a lot of different perspectives. So when we started thinking about Internet Explorer 7, we thought of it really in terms of three pillars in the abstract. The first one is providing an amazing user experience, not just the work that we've done. I think we've actually done some really great work, but also in the extensibility and the plugins that people use to extend IE's user experience. Secondly, providing secure and trustworthy browsing. And I want to be clear in terms of the effort involved, the effort that we've put forth, the priority we've placed on it. This is far and away number one on my team. The only reason it's number two is because the flow of my slides work a little bit better that way. But it is really number one in terms of priority to us. This is the thing that we think about the most. And finally, continuing to improve and expand on our web developer platform. So before I go into the features that we've built to sort of develop each of these three pillars, I did want to say the build of Windows Vista that you get in the PDC DVDs does not actually have a lot of the stuff in it. The build of IE in that is effectively the beta 1 build of IE. So some of the things I'm going to talk about will show up in the beta 2 preview that we do next month. Some of them, of course, will actually show up beyond that, but I think most of them will be in the beta 2 preview. And also, I want to set the expectation that most of this talk I'm going to spend on the second and third bullet points here. I'm going to show you the user experience. I do want to show it off a little bit. I think it's really cool. But I really want to focus on the features and work that we've done for developers. So with the user experience, we've said before that the web experience is it's composed of three verbs: browsing, searching, and subscribing. And the most critical of these, to me, is browsing. What do you do when you search? You actually enter a search term, and then you browse the search results. What do you do when you subscribe to a web feed? You actually browse the results of the web feed, right? Browse the posts that are in the feed. So with that in mind, we really wanted to rethink the basic user experience. We wanted to sort of redesign with a streamlined UI, provide a much tighter user experience overall. So we have built-in tab browsing. You saw that in the demo this morning. We actually shipped it in beta 1 in sort of a rough form. We've also provided a high-quality page zoom, which you may have seen this morning in one of the keynotes as well. There are a wide variety of screen sizes out there. Web designers and web content is still typically designed for an 800 by 600 screen. That makes it kind of hard to read sometimes, or makes you waste a lot of space on the screen when you're actually reading it as a user, so we've done some great work to zoom in on that. We've also provided a great new print experience. I was actually kind of surprised when I rejoined the IE team that the second most requested user functionality was an improved print experience, right after security. It was far and away the number 2 feature. Like the number 3 was way back beyond that. So we really wanted to focus on that. Users do still print a lot. Web content is frequently not really designed to be printed. And finally, no real surprise here, we have an integrated subscription platform. So I want to dive right into a demo here and show off some of the user experience. Once I get rid of the new device driver that it keeps finding. So this is it. This is IE7. Browsing is really the heart of the user experience, I said, but I also want to call out that search is pretty key too. And with that in mind, we've actually put search as a box straight into the core UI. It's always there, always accessible. This is actually expandable as well. You can choose what search provider you want, add new search providers in there. Let's go ahead and flip to a new tab here, and I'll go ahead and do a search. And the first feature I really wanted to demonstrate was a little bit more about tab browsing. So I'm just going to control click here to open up a bunch of tabs. And as Chris demoed this morning in the keynote speech, we have this, you have the ability to, whoops. I have the ability to mess up the control panel apparently. So we have the ability to quickly switch between tabs. Just use Control Tab and I'll switch between tabs really quickly. You'll notice most of the titles are actually getting cut off because I have so many of these open. I can use a drop-down list to pick which one I'm really interested in. Or I can use this new feature called Quick Tabs that actually gives me a live preview of all of the tabs that I have open. I can actually flip to one of the tabs when I figure out which one I want. I can decide I want to close one, not view it at all. But really focusing on giving you a very easy and natural way to manage the tabs that you have open, manage the content that you're viewing. So the other feature that I talked about is we've provided a page zoom. And this is kind of hard to demo, unfortunately, because the screen is relatively low resolution. But a lot of times you will run into a web page like this, where it actually has this big white band on the right side of the screen, because it was designed for a smaller screen than this to fit onto an 800 by 600 screen typically. And I can actually control mouse wheel on this and zoom it way up, and for some reason my image has died in this. This is why it's beta, obviously. Let's try reopening that one. All right, let's try restarting the browser. There we go. Nope. Okay, well, one of the things that I was supposed to be showing you right now, which of course, God of demos has attacked me here, is that the images, when we stretch them out, and you can sort of see this in the background image here, when we stretch images, we actually run them through an image filter. So we get a very nice, smooth, clean image stretch. It's not really blocky and pixelated. It looks really good if you zoom up. And of course, the text is being rasterized at the native resolution, so it's very sharp. Now I want to flip back to normal size here. And the next thing that we've added is a great default print experience. We really wanted to make sure that we really wanted to make sure that we showed off. Oh, that's lovely. Well, we'll just use it on MSNBC. We really wanted to make sure that when you went to print, you didn't have to mess around with it for a long time. You didn't have to go hand edit the content or anything like that to try to get it to work. But you could actually go straight into printing or print previewing. And as Chris demoed this morning also, by default, we'll actually shrink the page if it's within some certain boundaries, so it'll still look good. We'll shrink it down to make sure that it fits on a page. If I just run this through IE6, for example, I get an experience like this, where the right edge of this page is actually getting cut off. You can tell this ad's getting cut off, which I probably don't mind too much as I'm printing, but some of the content later on, like these stock prices here, are actually getting chopped, which is kind of a bad experience. Now, we also wanted to make sure that you had a lot of control over this. So I will, you can see I'm flipping through the multi-page preview here, but I have the ability to choose a different scaling factor, a custom scaling factor if I want, to make sure that it'll fit. Like if I go to 70% and I can actually get it to fit on 4 pages rather than the 6 or 5 that it was using before. So I can use this to trim things down, to sort of squeeze it in to fit. If I don't quite like the way that the automatic version is working, I can do a custom setting. I can also, I will occasionally get pages that when you load them up and try to print them, you'll get a page orphan, or you get a line or two on the last page. So this page is actually getting shrunk automatically. I'll zoom that back up to normal. And you'll see that it's just barely lapping onto the second page. Now the worst part about this is frequently what laps onto the last page is the copyright statement. I actually don't want to print something that has a copyright statement and skip printing that. But if I have the automatic shrink to fit, you'll notice we're automatically detecting, hey, we could just squeeze this a little bit and fit it all onto one page. So I'm going to drop out of the print preview for a minute, and I wanted to call out again, we've really streamlined this UI. We've gotten rid of a lot of the things that normally sort of clutter up the space there. There's no file menu at all. There's no menu bar for that matter. Those things are still there if you really want them. You can hit the Alt key, you get the menu back, and for a while I was sort of still using that to transition over, but now I really like the nice clean new UI. All the things that you typically want, like the tools are right there. The printing experience is right there. So it's much cleaner, and you're really much more focused on the task of browsing. Now, the other thing that I mentioned before is that we've added is subscription support. And you'll notice we've got a little RSS icon right here in the toolbar, and it's detected that this MSNBC page actually has a web feed associated with it. It has a feed of RSS. So I can click on the RSS feed, and as Chris showed, you get a nice clean view of this content, a very, very pretty view. I can also filter it to look for specific terms in that view. Or I can say, hey, I want to subscribe to this feed. I'm going to go ahead and add it into my feeds. And this takes just a second to chunk away somewhere in the depths of our engine. And I'm actually going to go and add another feed. And this feed's a little different because this is actually a photo blog feed. This has photos attached to each posting. Today, most of the feeds that are out there are either textual feeds, news feeds, or the IE blog, for example. That's pretty much all text, even rich text. Or there's a lot of podcasting out there as well. You get a lot of audio feeds. But we're really seeing that just start to evolve into photographs, into video, into other types of data. And the thing that we've really provided that's most interesting in IE7 is a subscription platform that you can build other applications on. So now that I'm looking at this blog, I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to this feed too. One of the program managers on our team actually wrote an application that looks at that photo blog and runs it as a screensaver. So it will actually sit there and flip through any new postings on there. As new postings come in, it will update and add that to the screensaver. And really, this is all very nice. It's a great application, but the point isn't the application itself. The point is that we've built this platform, this common subscription platform that does all of the storage of feeds and the management of feeds, and allows you to build applications very easily that make use of that. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation for a minute and talk about what exactly we are providing in our subscription platform. Now, I showed you feed discovery a minute ago. That's pretty basic, pretty obvious how we do that. But as I said, the most important thing is that we're providing this common platform. We're providing a feed list. We're providing storage. We're providing a parser for RSS and Atom feeds, and a synchronization system, of course, to keep all of this running together. And we've also extended RSS with list support under a Creative Commons license, so freely licensable, that allows us to have lists that are not time-dependent. So you can have data that, it may be a list, but it's not really this time-dependent idea of a new post is going to come in and eventually push the old ones out of the way. I also wanted to say, with the search box, that we've not only provided a way to add new search providers for the user, but we've actually been working together with A9.com, and under the Creative Commons license, we've evolved the OpenSearch 1.0 specification. So OpenSearch 1.1 actually allows search output in HTML as well as getting the search results in an RSS feed. And the great thing about this is you can actually use OpenSearch 1.1 to define a search engine, a search provider that can get picked up in Internet Explorer for any search engine that's already out there, just a search engine like Google or Yahoo or MSN that automatically gives back HTML content. And the last piece of this puzzle really is that we have a script API now that will prompt the user to add a service provider, a search engine provider. This points to, obviously, an OpenSearch 1.1 description document. So I can, if I'm a search engine provider, I can provide a button on my website that actually allows the user to add that to their search box. This is very similar to the model that we have for changing the home page in IE, and always prompts the user and asks the user to confirm that this is really what they want to do. So I want to kind of switch gears a little here and start talking about security. I've said on the IE blog before that I think security will always be the #1 priority for the Internet Explorer team. Obviously, it is job one to me. In IE7, we've really taken that to heart, and we've done a lot of innovative work, as well as some sort of natural continuation of the work that we did in IE and in Windows XP SP2. So if you went to Rob Franco's, unfortunately somewhat truncated talk this morning, you know that we took this approach really based on threat modeling. We looked at how Internet Explorer as an overall browser could be attacked, and we used that to sort of build up what sort of mitigation features we want. I'm really not going to talk about that here. I'm going to talk about sort of the broad classes of mitigations. Rob also is going to replay his talk, or actually do the full talk, since he ran out of time when the keynotes ran over. And if you're really interested in the threat modeling approach, I really encourage you to go see that. Pay attention down by the registration. They'll actually tell you when the talk is going to be rescheduled. So the way that we really categorize the broad class mitigations, first of all, is dynamic protection against web fraud, trying to protect users against fraudulent data or fraudulent websites. Secondly, is providing full informed user control over the add-ons that are on their system. The user really has to know about what's getting onto their system, what kind of software is running on it. And finally, really drilling down and providing advanced protection against malicious software and software that gets installed without your knowledge. So when we think about web fraud, wow, I probably get 20 or more emails a day that tell me I need to update my eBay account or my PayPal account or some bank that I've never heard of. And that's after the Microsoft spam filter gets a hold of it. I get a whole lot of emails, so obviously I'm kind of used to filtering all of that out. But we really wanted to provide the user a way to validate the legitimacy of those websites. So we provided this anti-phishing service, Integrated Internet Explorer, and Chris did a demo of this morning. I'm going to sort of recap that and give a little more detail in a minute. The next thing we did was really refactor our user experience to highlight security. So give a clear experience around security, make sure the user knows what's going on, and identify pop-up windows with the URL and domain that they're associated with to sort of prevent UI spoofing. And finally, to put privacy under the user's control, we've actually provided a one-click cleanup feature that wipes out the history, the cache, all of the other sort of data about what you've been browsing. And this can be disabled through group policy, of course. In a corporate environment, this may not be desirable, so it is disableable. And finally, you heard this morning in the keynote about this parental controls work. Now, parental controls in Windows Vista actually filters out these binary requests at the network level. So this works across any browser. Any browser will be protected. Any network application running on the system will be protected against someone who doesn't have access. So, against your kids actually going and downloading this binary data. However, the work that we've done in Internet Explorer is actually to integrate with that, to recognize that class of error, and make sure that we provide a clear user experience that says, hey, this is why you couldn't get to this content. So, a kid tries to go download a game, we will actually tell them why they're not allowed to, and then they know they need to go elevate privilege with their parent. So I want to do a quick demo, run through the anti-phishing demo a little bit again, and show off another feature or two. So the first thing is when you go to a bad site, when you go to a site that actually is phishing for data, and we've actually proven this. So you'll notice it actually does go to the page for a second, and then it says, whoops, hey, I did a network transaction, I went up to the dynamic filter service, and it told me this actually has been reported as a phishing website. This thing is trying to steal your data. You can't actually continue to this. If you do, you'll notice the address bar is still bright red. It tells you it's a phishing website. It says, please don't enter your credit card information, in effect, with this experience. Now, if I go to a site that I don't really know whether it's a phishing website or not, but it does have something suspicious about it. For example, this URL is an IP address. It's not actually a domain name. So this tells me, hey, this may not be a good site for you to be entering data into. And I can actually report whether or not this is a phishing website. In fact, you noticed when I went to the bad site just a minute ago, the site that got blocked, even after it had blocked the site, it told me, hey, I could report this isn't actually a phishing website. And there are humans on the other end. This isn't automatic. It's not a voting system that you can just sort of stuff the ballot box. A human at the other end is going to go validate this. But if you, as a company, are for some reason or other, the phishing filter is saying that your site is suspicious or a phishing site, this is how you will actually go to report this and get that reversed. Now, the final thing that I wanted to show here is I've shown kind of a bad site. I've shown a suspicious, unknown site, in effect. There is also an experience for a good site that's been changed somewhat. So if I go to a site that has a secure connection and is a good connection, so the certificate's valid and everything, I get a little lock icon in the address bar. And this is kind of unobtrusive, but the important part is I can click on this for a security report, and it gives me the most important data for a user to actually see about this site. So I can see, hey, this certificate was signed by Microsoft from Redmond, Washington, organization and location as authorized by the certificate authority listed here. Now, you can still go and view the details, but if you go and look at this, which is basically our old certificate browsing information, you can still get all of the details of this certificate. You can still look at the certificate path. This kind of makes most end users' eyes just sort of twist. They're not really interested in that, or at least they don't understand it if they are interested in it. Okay, so I wanted to switch back again, and oops, didn't press hard enough. And I wanted to talk about providing the user with full control over the add-ons on their system. Now, as I said, one of the most important things we needed to do was provide the user information about the add-ons in their system. And we actually started doing this in the Service Pack 2 release of Internet Explorer. Like, we gave you this managed add-ons feature, so you could actually look at the add-ons in your system. But one of the things that we didn't really address at the time was that the attack surface today of IE really consists not just of ActiveX controls that you would download over the internet, but the ActiveX controls that are already on your system. And some of these ActiveX controls actually, in fact, most of them, were not really necessarily designed to be used from the internet. They could be part of an application that's already been installed on the system, uses ActiveX as a way of componentizing itself, but it doesn't really expect to be instantiated inside an HTML page. So in IE7, explicit user consent is actually required on the first run of ActiveX controls that are already pre-installed on the system. There will be some that will pre-populate an allow list for, so you won't get the most common, obviously designed for the internet pages to pop these, or designed for the internet controls to pop these warnings. But other than that, users really get the same experience between an ActiveX control that's already pre-installed on the system and reference the class ID, and an ActiveX control that they're being asked to download other than the initial download page. So you'll get the same info bar. It'll say, hey, do you want me to install this ActiveX control? And finally, as Rob mentioned earlier, we will have an add-ons disabled mode for recovery. So if your system has got add-ons that are polluting it and you're not even able to boot, you can run IE, if you're not able to boot IE, that is, you'll be able to boot IE and in add-ons disabled mode and be able to sort of recover from that, disable all the add-ons that are causing a problem. Now, I wanted to talk about a few changes that we've done to sort of impede critical exploits that we've had in IE or that we expect in IE. And these are really, this is really more illustrative than anything else. We do have a lot of other changes. This is more just showing the depth of thought that we have in our system. So one of the first things is that special characters cause problems in URL parsing. And today, URLs are often passed as strings inside our system in IE6. And some of the components of IE6 will actually parse them inconsistently with each other. So in IE7, we created a single URL parsing object. And even that, it's kind of OK. So obviously, you would think you would do that today. But one of the critical things that we've done is actually expose to this API for other applications to use as well. So you can share the same URL parsing, make sure that you're getting the same domain information as Internet Explorer will. This is also where we add IDN support, or international domain name support. And we're sort of conscious of the problem that there is with spoofing using, using glyphs from other character sets, mixing up character sets inside a phrase in a URL. So we've provided secure defaults to help prevent that from happening, to make sure that the user knows when they go to ibm.com, it actually is ibm.com, not greekiotabm.com. So we do address that problem. Now, another thing that I wanted to cover, another one of these sort of defense in depth issues, is we changed the way that the JavaScript protocol works, or JavaScript URLs. These don't actually navigate anymore. We just strip the JavaScript colon off and run these as script inside the page. Now, this still doesn't cause a problem with JavaScript URLs working in good cases. The most common cases are bookmarklets, or favorites that actually perform a JavaScript URL to do something to the page that you're looking at. Or, of course, you can type in a JavaScript URL in the address bar. These cases still work. What doesn't work, what has changed, is that you could, in the past, occasionally use the JavaScript colon URL and get something to happen and have the system think that it was on a different domain than it actually should have. Another thing that we've done is objects that handle data by reference actually have to understand redirects. We've always had redirect notifications, but the data is now actually locked. The system can't look at it. So if the image element, for example, didn't understand a redirect, it would not be able to get the image data at all when there was a redirect taking place. So sort of continuing this theme of defense in depth, I wanted to talk about another threat. So frequently, when a security exploit is actually found, when somebody finds a buffer overrun or some other problem in IE that allows them to sort of take over the machine in some way, hackers today will actually use that exploit not to reformat your hard drive or do some other kind of really nasty thing, but they'll actually use it to install malicious software. So they'll use it to install software you wouldn't normally say yes to if you actually got a prompt for it. Install spyware is obviously the most common version of this. Really, hackers today, for the most part, they're looking to get paid, and installing spyware is something they can get paid for. So instead of just being malicious, they'll actually be malicious with an intent to install software on your system. So one of the things that we've done, actually the major thing that we've done to prevent this, is what we call protected mode. Now, protected mode reduces the severity of any threat to IE by eliminating this sort of silent install of malicious code. It protects the registry and the file system from actually being written to. It doesn't prevent running Win32 code. So if they find an exploitable buffer overrun, for example, they can still exploit that. They could still run Minesweeper or whatever. But they can't actually write to the system. They can't write to the registry to get an ActiveX control or a browser helper object to run as you're browsing through the web. So how does this work? Well, this protected mode restricts IE from writing files outside the temporary internet files folder altogether. It sets it up so that you have actually fewer privileges than a normal user does in Windows Vista. This builds on top of the Windows Vista Mandatory Integrity Control, or the MIC, which is what restricts writes. And of course, this means that this feature is actually Windows Vista only. It's not capable of running on Windows XP. And when we need to write outside of the temporary internet files folder, like when you do file save as, for example, we do have a broker process that actually has the appropriate privileges. So we broker off to a totally separate process with a different level of integrity that has the ability to write to the rest of the file system. And of course, has a well-defined API that you have to call and will always prompt the user. And of course, add-ons have the ability to use a compatibility layer to get these same elevated privileges that IE does natively when it needs them. So what does this mean to the user experience overall if you're installing a toolbar or an ActiveX control? For ActiveX controls, it's really the same as XPSP2, except one critical difference, which is you get a user account privileges credential prompt. So if I get the gold bar that says I need to install the QuickTime control, I select install ActiveX control, I get the usual, do you want to install this software? This is when I get the user account protection prompt. So this is when it says, hey, this actually needs better than the limited privileges that you have. And I enter in my privileges, select whatever account has the appropriate privileges, and click OK. Toolbar install, pretty much the same thing. You still get the credential prompt because it still needs to be elevated from the normal protected mode. So if I click OK that I want to run this toolbar install, it will look at it, it'll check the publisher on it. I'll tell it that I want to install, and again, it asks me to elevate my privileges and give it an admin account. And then it goes in and does the usual toolbar install, install shield wizard sort of thing. So this is sort of the IE6 architecture. This is the difference between IE6 and IE7. For IE6, you had user rights for basically everything, for downloading documents, for saving and changing settings, just for caching web content to the temporary internet files. All of that went through user rights. When you were running normally in IE, you actually had user rights. Now, if you needed to install toolbars or ActiveX controls, you actually had to be an admin. We were really almost encouraging you to be an admin, to run as admin on your user system. Obviously, this is a horrendously bad thing for your user security. It's really bad when you have a system that is not being carefully managed. My mom's system, for example, I don't really want her running as admin, or I'm going to have to fly down and fix her computer all the time. So with IE7, the normal way of running, caching web content, saving and changing add-on settings, doing the file, actually not the file save as, but doing the normal stuff that you usually do as you browse the web, this all runs through the low integrity level in Windows Vista. Now, when I need to install some toolbars, kind of depends on where they're registering themselves, when I need to download documents and save them, or when add-ons actually say, hey, I need better privileges in this, then we need to elevate to the user rights, or the medium integrity layer. And of course, we do have this user broker that actually brokers out to that, to do file save as. And finally, if I'm trying to install an ActiveX control or install a toolbar that needs to write to the local machine registry, that's when I actually do need to elevate all the way to admin rights, to the high integrity level. So you can see between IE6 and IE7 running on Windows Vista, there's a big difference in sort of the granularity of integrity that we have when we need to write to the file system. Now, obviously, you're probably thinking by this point, wow, this has got a really damaged compatibility for add-ons. The first thing that I want to point out is the intranet and trusted site zones and local machine zone, for that matter, actually don't run in protected mode. It's only the internet zone that runs in this zone, or this mode, sorry. So that actually means that for intranet applications and for trusted sites, if you're running sort of extranet applications across trusted sites, not a problem at all, because it does just run in normal user mode or admin mode, except, of course, on Vista you have to elevate. The one odd side effect of this, however, is that if you navigate across these zones, if you go from an intranet zone to an internet zone, we will spawn a new window for that because it has to be in a totally separate process to protect it. For add-ons, though, they have a bunch of options to sort of restore the impacted functionality. The first thing that actually happens for in-proc add-ons, for ActiveX controls or toolbars that are running in the IE process, their file writes automatically get rerouted. They get rerouted into the temporary internet files via this compat layer. So if they try to write to somewhere on the // folder, they actually get rerouted and get a virtual file inside temporary internet files. Registry writes get rerouted in much the same way automatically. They go into a virtual area of the registry that won't allow someone to register something that will run in your startup files, for example, but does allow them to save things. It doesn't just automatically fail. And finally, of course, add-ons can call the Save As API to save files outside of temporary internet files. Now, for out-of-process add-ons, primarily doc-obj servers, so things that plug into the primary frame of IE, these do get protected modes restrictions by default. By default, they do run in protected mode and have these restrictions about where they can write, but they don't get the automatic rerouting of file writes and registry key writes. However, they can elevate privilege if the user allows. They can ask to be elevated to a higher integrity level. So while I'm talking about compatibility, I did want to stress the importance of compatibility to the IE team. You know, if I said security was job 1, compatibility has always really been job number 2. And in IE for Windows XP SP2, we actually created this tool, the IE Compatibility Evaluator. And this is a really useful tool for when we do security changes, because this logs and identifies the features that are blocking your application from running, your web application from running. So if, for example, you upgrade to this new version of IE, to the IE XP SP2 version, or to IE7, and suddenly your web application stops working, if you run this compatibility evaluator, it will actually log what's happening in the system. So when we deny some call somewhere, this will actually log that, and you'll be able to tell why your application stopped working. So this is part of the Windows App Compatibility Toolkit on MSDN. And Tarek Sharif on my team actually wrote a great blog post about this on the IE blog back in March. So if you want more information about how to use this, this is a great place to get information on it. So sort of continuing the theme of compatibility, but moving on to the web dev platform, you know, we've had a lot of complaints that we've been constrained by compatibility in IE. And I wanted to speak to that for just a minute and say that since IE6, we implemented this doc type switch. So we can tell the difference between just standard web content out in the wild and web content that the author actually claims to know what they're doing in terms of standards compliance. They really want standards compliance. So Quirks mode, as it's called, the version of just no doc type or a malformed doc type, some content that's not really valid, this stays the same. And in fact, many of the changes that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, these are really only in strict mode. These don't happen in Quirks mode. Quirks mode is largely for compatibility to us, so we try not to break it. But I do want to stress, we will change behavior under strict mode. In fact, we do aggressively change behavior under strict mode. Our goal is for strict mode to be standards compliant, and that means even if we ship IE7 and we haven't fixed something, we will fix it in IE8. We will fix it under strict mode. Like, we're not going to limit ourselves to being compatible with what we do in IE7 in strict mode. But we had a problem with IE6 where if you write valid XHTML and serve it as text/HTML, valid XHTML has to have an XML prologue in it. and that XML prologue would actually, for some reason or other, in our parser, would kick us into quirks mode. We fixed that, no longer kicks us into quirks mode. So if you're writing valid XHTML and you have a valid XHTML doc type, even with the XML prologue, we will still be in strict mode for that content. So when we worked on the web dev platform, when we thought about the web developer platform, with these compatibility assurances that we didn't need to worry about fixing things under strict, we really attacked a lot of the IE6 layout problems, incompatibilities with the CSS standards, and some really nasty bugs in the layout engine as well. We've knocked out a lot of the top bugs that are out there, bugs on quirksmode.org, positioniseverything.net, sorry, as well as a number of other problems. So this is kind of, in short, the chunk on the side there is the positioniseverything.net web page. All of the blocks on there are the items that we fixed. I think there are 2 of them right now that we haven't fixed yet. This is sort of a partial listing of the bugs that we've fixed. There's plenty more, and we obviously have not shipped IE7 yet. But have we fixed everything? No, we haven't. Are we going to fix everything in IE7? Again, no, we're not going to get everything fixed in IE7. But hey, you know, I need job security, and so does the rest of my team. So we have plenty more to do in the future. On top of just fixing a lot of the problems that we've had and a lot of the bugs that were in our system, we've actually added a bunch of the top most requested standards features as well. So I think it's no real secret. We announced back in February or March that we added the alpha channel support in PNG images, so you can have partially transparent areas of PNG images. We've added all of the selectors from CSS2, so attribute selectors, adjacent selectors, child selectors, first child, all of that stuff is in there. We've added fixed positioning from CSS2 as well, which is one of the top requested web developer features. We've made the hover pseudoclass work on all elements, so it's not restricted just to anchor tags. And finally, we've polished our HTML support, our HTML 401 support. We've added the abbreviation semantic element. We've made object fallback work. There's still a couple of things that are not perfect in there. We do have some problems with images as objects still, and quoting the Q element, I think, was the other thing that we haven't gotten to yet. In addition to this, we've actually made the XML HTTP request a native JavaScript object. This better enables DHTML applications that want to use this, the Atlas applications, for example. Anything that wants to use XML HTTP to do requests to a server. The most important part of this is that XML HTTP is no longer subject to ActiveX being enabled on the system. So even if you have ActiveX disabled on your user system, this call will still work. It is obviously disableable, but separately, and security lockdown won't actually lock this down. The select element is now a windowless control. This means you can layer select elements or drop-down boxes underneath other elements in your page. This is something that has been a problem for a long time. Obviously, a bunch of people are excited about this. I was pretty excited about it too. And finally, of course, we've provided even more improved documentation. I think documentation has always been one of our strong points for our developer platform in IE, and it's continuing to improve. So I just wanted to actually prove that some of these things are working. Give you a quick demo of some of our features here. So first of all, this is a PNG alpha channel demo. And this eagle has a shadow that's a totally separate image. So you can see they move around based on where the sun is. But you can see how it fades very smoothly over the hillside underneath it. In fact, if I grab the sun and move it, you can see it's over on top of the text here. And it's kind of hard to see from that far away, I imagine, but you can tell that it's actually not just a binary transparency. It's not the pixels are either on or off. Some of the pixels on the sun are partly yellow and partly black because of the text below them. I also wanted to show another feature that I didn't mention before was this background position fixed. We previously only supported this on the body tag, and there are some really neat effects you can get. This looks like there's kind of a glassy filter on the text body of this content, but it's not actually a filter. It's a totally separate background image, but it's fixed in position so that as I scroll this content, it appears to not move at all. It appears like the filter is just sort of going over this other background image. This is another thing that we've had hanging out there for a very long time. And finally, I wanted to show, whoops, never mind the script error in my demo. We have some select boxes here, some drop downs, and a DHTML menu actually goes over on top of it. This is something we wanted to fix for a really long time. I'm glad we finally could. And this also has fixed content in it. So you can tell the scroll bar actually goes up all the way on the side of this content. But the DHTML menus in this system actually stay put. They don't move at all. And I think, let's switch back for just a second. So as we thought about what we were doing in the web developer platform, we also realized, we really hadn't been doing enough to support web designers on our platform, web developers on our platform. We hadn't been giving them enough tool support for what they really needed to do. With that in mind, we actually built an IE toolbar. We had a bunch of interns do some work on it. We did some work natively in-house. We had sort of creatively funded this. And we provided a rich tool set for people who wanted to develop DHTML and CSS. Object model tools, visual tools. We're actually just about to do a beta release of this to offer it up for download. It'll be freely available after that as well. The downloadable beta, please watch the IE blog and you'll see a notice about it as soon as we get it posted. That should be sometime this week or at worst next week, I think. It's just about ready to go. And also, I want to say this runs on IE6. You don't actually need to be running IE7 on your system to use this toolbar. It'll run on IE6. It actually might even run on IE5.5. We just didn't test it. I wanted to give a quick demo of some of the things you can do with this toolbar. But the first thing that I'm going to demonstrate is, you really shouldn't let your team develop your test pages after they've gotten their performance reviews for the year, because they will, in fact, find 12-year-old pictures of you with a flock of seagulls haircut, and it will come back to haunt you. That stuff never goes away. But I'll go ahead and turn on the developer toolbar, which I've already installed on this system, so I just had to enable it so it was viewable. First thing you can get here is a view of the document object model. So I get this little folder list here, and you'll notice it's flashing things up above it that tell me when I've selected some particular element or other. There's a lot of tools in here that give you sort of the current style properties. It gives you what the attributes set on that particular element are. It's a really good way to sort of dig through a document and quickly find the element that you're interested in. And you can also do things like disable the cache if you're trying to test something and see how it works without a cache. Disable images altogether, disable cookies, a lot of different options like that. You can view all of the information on the element, like you can view where the link paths are, and you'll notice it pops up this little box over all the links that tells where they're actually linking to. You can have it outline particular elements, so tell you where all the divs are on a page, where all the tables are on a page. You can actually link straight to validation engines. So you can validate your HTML, you can validate your CSS, validate your feed if you're offering a feed. You can do a bunch of different manipulations with images on the system. You can show the image paths, sort of like the anchor paths. You can show what the dimensions of images are. So you can actually explore as you're building things to figure out exactly what you're working with. You can see that very quickly. You can use resize to, and this actually has a bug in it on this machine, it resizes the window to an 800 by 600 screen. So if you're working with 800 by 600, it will actually show what the page looks like when you're running an 800 by 600. There are a bunch of miscellaneous to clear out the cache. A lot of times you'll be debugging and need to get information like that. You can go straight to the specifications on HTML, XHTML, CSS, all of those things. Straight to the IE blog to get the latest news from the IE blog. But one of the neatest features, actually, and one of the best ones for this particular test page, is we provided a ruler. So you can actually do measurements on the page as you're trying to figure out how to lay out your content, how to do your content design. You can use this ruler to measure between different elements. In fact, you can tell it to snap to the axes, whoops, you can tell it to snap to the axes and it will only do horizontal or vertical. One of the really neat features you can do is you can tell it to snap to an element, and you'll notice as I hover near the edge of this element, it actually lights up. And I can grab onto that, and it automatically snapped the edge of my ruler to that element. And as I move over next to another element, it lights up, and again, it snaps to that element, so it'll automatically tell me what the distance between these two elements is, not just, somewhere random that I clicked near that. And of course, the reason why it's so neat to use this particular page is you can measure exactly how tall that hair is, 91 pixels. All right, so what are the key takeaways from this? I showed you the user experience. That really isn't one of the key things I want you to take away from this talk. It's great. I think it's really very cool, but it's not the key message from this talk. First and foremost is around security. We really are very focused on security. We're focused on containing problems, and we're focused on really arming users with the information and the tools they need on their system to make their own informed decisions about what their level of security or level of integrity should be on their system. Secondly, we're hard at work, and we are improving this web platform. Wow, as I speak, there are still developers back cranking away. And finally, we want your continued feedback. We really do want to know what we can do to make IE a better and better platform. This is my email address. Please don't send mail to cwilson@microsoft.com. Different guy. He already gets a lot of my email. I already get a lot of his. So please put IE feedback in the title so that I'll see it and I won't miss it. Think it's one of those eBay mails that I get so many of. And finally, there are a couple things that I ask you to do. First of all, if you are a commercial add-on developer, or just an add-on developer in general, if you build ActiveX controls, browser helper objects, or toolbars, please understand what we're doing and how that's going to affect you and affect your users and affect their user experience as well. Make sure that you're prepared for those changes. Give us feedback. This is actually our feedback alias. You don't have to send email to me. This actually goes to all of the program managers on the team, so everyone on the team really will see this eventually. And finally, build web apps. Use this platform of Internet Explorer, of dynamic HTML, the Atlas stuff that we're spending a lot of time talking about at the PDC, and of course the Windows Presentation Foundation as well. Those are web applications. All of those are web applications, and they're all part of this ecosystem. And of course, again, I need job security, so keep building web apps. There are a bunch of resources that I wanted to point out. First and foremost, if you're interested in the RSS stuff, I'm happy to answer questions on that, but there's a really great talk about that Amar Gandhi is giving on Thursday. You should go see that. We have a great hands-on lab on RSS running right now, actually. Anytime, stop by the hands-on lab, and they'll be happy to help walk you through how our RSS platform works and how you can build applications that are subscription-enabled. And also, although I didn't make it into my slides, Rob will be repeating his talk on building a secure browser. So not sure exactly when that's going to be just yet, but it originally was supposed to be before my talk, so it's different in the slides. Tomorrow at lunchtime, okay. And for more information on IE in general, I'm on a panel Friday morning on the web platform. Also, Presentation Track Lounge and the Ask the Experts table. Presentation Track Lounge, we have IE people there all the time, except right now, I think, while we're at this talk. So please stop by. I'll be hanging out there a lot. A lot of members of my team will be hanging out there as well. Or stop by the IE table at the Ask the Experts event on Thursday. After the PDC, the Dev Center is really the center of all of our documentation and articles on how to use IE and DHTML. The team blog is very active. I think we've actually been the #1 most read, most subscribed to blog on MSDN for 5 months now, something like that, quite a while. And I mentioned the feedback alias before. These are also a couple of talks that are particularly interesting. The building a more secure browser in IE7 that we'll be repeating tomorrow, and choosing the right presentation technology to kind of explain where DHTML fits in, where Atlas fits in, where the Windows Presentation Foundation fits in. So with that in mind, I'm happy to take questions. I think we actually have a fair amount of time, actually hit right about on time. Go on and step up to a mic because I can't hear all that well in here. Over here.
I had two questions. The first was about any improvements in the kiosk issue or trying to use IE as a kiosk.
Any improvement in the kiosk situation?
Yeah, when I had to set up mine up, I mean, I had to do all kinds of reg hacks in order to get it to, to have the control things and all those things not work.
Okay, I don't actually know the particular issue around kiosks. I'd really appreciate it if you'd stop by and get one of my cards and you can send me some email on it.
The other issue is we had to unregister an Office DLL in order to get a radiology application to work because of memory issues. Do you know if it's still automatically loading that Office DLL or doing it the way it was doing it before?
So you're asking about an Office DLL that's automatically getting loaded into IE. I don't actually know which Office DLL we're loading, although I will say with the ActiveX opt-in work that we're doing, none of those DLLs should get loaded unless the user actually approves them. We're not actually preloading any Office DLLs or very few in IE itself, actually.
Okay.
Yeah?
Two questions also. The first one, you mentioned that now ActiveX DLLs in the computer the user will get prompt for authorization when a web page tries to load them. If I install my application, is there a way to pre-add that DLL to the authorization list during the setup of my application?
So the question is, if you actually are installing an application and you do want your ActiveX control to be loaded in IE, can you sort of pre-authorize it so that the user doesn't have to get this gold bar and accept that prompt? Yes, absolutely. You will be able to authorize controls on installation if you're actually saying, hey, I actually intended for this control to be used on the internet from within IE. There will be a way to do that. We haven't worked out quite all the details yet, but it's definitely part of that design.
My second question was regarding pop-ups. Is there a way also to pre-authorize pop-ups on a certain website during the setup of an application, or ask the user from a web page itself through some kind of scripting, ask the user to pre-authorize that before you enter into application and you find a pop-up?
Is there a way to pre-authorize pop-ups on a particular web page or domain? I don't believe there actually is, but I'm not positive. If you'll come up afterwards, we'll get some of the other people in the IE team and they can answer your question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I have a question on the protection, malware protection. If the user wants to download one of my shareware apps from my website and install it, just say run instead of save. So what will happen? Will it install all my files to the temporary internet files, or how does that work?
If you, so you're asking if you choose run on an installation executable, what will happen? Will it just write them out to the temporary internet files? Actually, it won't just write them out to the temporary internet files. The goal is that the user account protection manager actually recognizes this is an installer, not just minesweeper.exe, something that actually does need to have elevated privileges, and it will automatically say, hey, you need elevated privileges, please log in with an admin account, or give me admin credentials. So that will happen automatically if you're using an installer. You may have to, if you're doing a custom application, so you're writing Minesweeper that actually needs to write a reg key to HTLM, for example, you will have to elevate the privileges yourself in that application. But if you're using any common installer, Install Shield, or MSI or anything like that, it will actually automatically detect that and know that it needs elevated privileges.
Okay, thanks.
Question in the back.
We've been doing a lot of work with DHTML and kind of like Atlas and Ajax. One of the things that we've noticed is that as you add elements in using JavaScript and then you attach events to those elements that you've added in to the web page, the memory starts, if you continuously, you don't end up closing that page, or you don't end up going back to the reposting, you end up with a lot, the memory starts increasing. And has there been done anything to address, even if the object is then removed off the page dynamically, has there been anything to address then releasing that memory in the environment?
So the question is around DHTML applications, and particularly when you build a lot of elements and attach a lot of events, we tend to start eating memory. We do have a bug around this. We've had it for a long time. We've actually fixed one major bug that I think is the one you're describing. If you can provide me with a repro case, it would be really handy to make sure that it's actually been fixed. Or when we release the preview of Beta 2, run your application in that and see if you're still seeing the same memory leak. We have done some work around there. Certainly, I'm not going to say it's absolutely bulletproof because it's hard to find every single DHTML memory leak we can find, but we have fixed some. Yes, over here. Oh. Right in front then.
So my question's around making XML HTTP native.
Mm-hmm.
So the reasoning behind that, I guess, is because we don't want to prompt the user about ActiveX because you're just trying to make a request to a server to get some data without refreshing the page. But there's lots of stuff that goes around that XML that you're potentially downloading, like doing a transform or loading another DOM, and those are all the way you get at those objects right now in IE6 through DHTML is to use like the ActiveX wrapper and say, I want to transform this object, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So how is that going to affect, it seems to me that XML HTTP is just like one part. How's that going to affect us going forward?
So the question is, great to make XML HTTP request a native object, but there are a bunch of other XML, there are a bunch of other objects that sort of usually participate in that ecosystem around XML and what to do with it. We actually are looking at what else we need to move into this native system. Don't know exactly the details of what we might do there yet, but we do recognize that it's not just XML HTTP request. That is, I think, the most important one, the most commonly used one, but there are a bunch of other things that we want to move into that as well.
Just as a side note around that, will it fix this pointer so that when I get the ready state handler, I still know that I'm myself when I'm listening to events?
Will it fix the this handler
So,
on...
for example, you have XML HTTP object. You say, ready state change is a function. If you go in that, when that function runs, and you say this dot ready state, if this dot ready state equals complete, that doesn't work. The this pointer actually points back out to the window currently right now, and it's because it's wrapped in an ActiveX layer.
I don't actually know if we fixed that or not. If you can send me a bug report and email, I'd appreciate it. We'll get it off to the dev team.
This might be a question for the ASP team, but do you know, is the upcoming version of ASP.NET going to render the controls any different for Internet Explorer 7? Or?
Is the upcoming version of ASP.NET going to render controls any differently for IE?
Yeah, like how it today renders controls differently for Netscape and Mozilla than it does for Internet Explorer.
I don't believe that they're doing anything strategically different in that case than they have in the past. I'm not actually positive of the details, though.
Okay, so didn't know if
you should ask the ASP.NET team.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes?
You said one of the big things you guys are looking at is printing support and such. You guys adding more CSS support for like page breaks and everything?
We actually haven't. So the question was whether we'd added more CSS support for things like page breaks or named pages, for example, would be another thing we could have done there. We actually haven't added any of that in yet. Mostly what we were focused on in IE7 is giving a great default sort of fire and forget printing experience. We've actually always had the infrastructure to further what we do for designers who are actually building a page to look really good, who do want the ability to say, hey, the pages that are odd numbers should have a wider right margin, the pages that are even numbers should have a wider left margin, sort of thing. We haven't done that in IE7. We actually will be continuing to look at it in the future, though. Next.
There are a lot of applications which use the web browser control. So how much of these security features which are being put into IE is part of web browser controllers?
Sorry, I didn't hear the middle part.
All the security enhancements which are part of IE7. There are a lot of applications which use web browser control and host HTML in that. So how much of the security features will be applied to that application also, which uses the browser control?
Okay, so the question is how many of the security features that I've talked about will apply when you're hosting the web OC, when you're hosting our system inside another application. Some of the features do actually apply to that. Things like the JavaScript protocol move, for example, are certainly still part of the system. Some of the features really don't apply at all, like, for example, protected mode. You don't get that by default when you host the web OC. It would be really hard to go take over your native process and not break your application in the meantime. So it's kind of a mix. It's some things you do get, some things you won't.
So does that mean that if that any HTML which is there in that web browser control, if it is instantiating an ActiveX, it will not be running under protected mode?
If another application is instantiating another ActiveX control?
The web browser control which is being instantiated in the application.
Yes.
If the HTML hosted in that web browser control, if that instantiates an ActiveX control.
Okay, so if you have an application that's hosting the web browser control, and that the HTML that's pointed at hosts another ActiveX control, do you get the ActiveX opt-in experience? I actually don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm looking at Rob here, and he's... Great. So the answer is they don't by default apply, but there are things that you can do to get those sort of restrictions added to your application.
Which session is that tomorrow?
It's the reschedule of the Building a More Secure Browser. Should be around lunchtime. Check by the registration desk, and they have update slips there. They had to reschedule a bunch of sessions. 12:30 here? Okay, so 12:30 tomorrow in this room.
Thanks.
Next.
Yeah, I was a bit curious about the technique used to discover the RSS feeds on web page.
Mm-hmm.
How do you discover what is a RSS feed on a page?
How do we discover what the RSS feed on the page is? I believe the RSS feeds are typically set up with a link element on the page. There's a standard for using the link tag to point to a subscription feed off of the page as well, and give the type of that as well so that we know it's an RSS feed or it's an Atom feed.
So you have to add this to the link?
Yeah, so when you have a page like the MSNBC page, for example, if you go to the MSNBC page and look at their content, they actually have a link tag near the top of it that points off to a web feed.
Okay.
Next.
You had mentioned earlier that you'll get one type of behavior when you're downloading an installer versus just a plain exe.
Mm-hmm.
How does IE7 determine whether an exe is actually an installer?
So the question is, how do you know whether an executable is an installer? How does IE7 know whether an executable is an installer? We don't actually know. IE7 uses the user account protection feature, the user account protection manager, it says, I want to run this executable. I don't actually know. And that uses heuristics to determine whether it's a common installer pattern. I'm not totally sure of the technical details of how they're doing that today. This is what they do for executables on the system as well. If you, as a user, double-click on an installer, it may actually need to elevate privileges to install an HKLM, for example.
The reason I'm asking is in the earlier question you had said that it wouldn't even be downloaded, but I don't see how IE7 is going to determine whether it's an installer without at least downloading it to the temporary internet folder.
It actually isn't that it won't be it won't be downloaded at all. It will be downloaded because we do need the bits in order to be able to tell whether it's an installer or not. It's whether it gets executed and run as whether we elevate privileges before we try to run it or not. I think Rob wants to respond to that one.
Actually, I don't want to add any information there, but I do want to say that what I'm hearing here is a lot of interest in how protected mode works. We heard that after Jim did the limited demo today. So a lot of what we'll do tomorrow is spend a lot of time looking at protected mode and understanding the exact architecture, because it's something that we want your application to be compatible with, and we also want folks to consider implementing it within their own. So please come back. It's 12:30 to 1:15. That's the current information I have about the lunchtime session.
Great. One more question?
Well, it's about protected mode. I am wondering, does it affect any JavaScript itself? Like, are there any method calls that are not allowed? Or how about especially Java applets as well? Does it apply to them as well?
So you're asking whether protected mode affects JavaScript or Java applets in particular. So protected mode won't affect JavaScript natively. Certainly if you were trying to instantiate an ActiveX control through JavaScript, it would have the same effects there. The Java applets, if the Java VM is already installed on the system, I don't think it will have any effects on that, other than the Java VM will be running inside protected mode. I don't know how thoroughly we've tested other Java VMs to run that way. And our Java VM doesn't get installed on the clean build anymore. So it should not have any effect, except the Java applets will run inside protected mode.
So then the Java applet, when it's trying to write to a location outside temporary?
If it's trying to write to a location outside temporary internet files, it would have an issue, yes.
Okay. And did you say that there's no effect on Win32 calls?
So there's no effect on running Win32 applications. Like Win32 applications will still run, I should say. It's not that you can't, that protected mode prevents you from running Win32 code. It's that protected mode actually affects the file and registry key writes that Win32 code can get to. So you can still do GDI calls, for example, but if you do a registry key write, it's going to get virtualized into this low integrity area.
So if a Java applet is doing something that normally would require admin privileges, like installing a device or changing the routing table, those are not directly affected by protected mode?
I don't think writing to a device would be directly affected, no. Question in back?
Yes, I'm wondering about advancement with the scripting engine. Will there be a new version of the script engine, and if so, are there any advancements like in the JavaScript engine?
Will there be a new advancement of the script, new version of the script engine? In IE7, there's not a major revision of the script engine. We are looking at how to do that in the future and what the right set of things to address in the script engine would be, other obviously than memory leaks and that sort of thing. There are some patches to it. There are some bug fixes in leak fixing primarily that will be in IE7, but we'd be happy to hear feedback on what you'd like to see in the script engine.
Thanks.
Up front?
Question on the PNG functionality. Will the alpha image loader be replaced then with the native PNG functionality?
Will the alpha image loader be replaced with the native PNG? I don't believe so. I don't think that it would make, I think it would be challenging to sort of reverse engineer how to get the alpha loader to work using the native code.
Okay. The follow-up question then is so IE7 will support the alpha image loader. Is the process in which it instantiates the alpha image loader going to be the same as IE6? Meaning that it instantiates a new object for each image that you have?
So the question is, do we still instantiate a new alpha image loader object process for each image that we load? I believe that we do, yes, in that case. We don't do the same thing in reverse for PNG images that are being that natively have an image channel in them, an alpha channel in them. Okay, thanks very much. If you have any other questions, I'll be around for a little while, or stop by the presentation track lounge. Thank you.